She had built an empire from the ground up, a titan of industry in a world that rarely made room for her. Her name was on the building, her vision in every corner. Yet on that day, she was made to feel like an outsider in her own kingdom, a stranger in the very boardroom she created. They thought she was just another face in the lobby. They had no idea they were looking at their boss. What happens when a queen is mistaken for a pawn? Amelia Vance wasn't just a CEO, she was an architect of dreams. Her company, a global leader in renewable energy, was built on a foundation of sleepless nights and a relentless belief that one person could in fact change the world. She wasn't born into wealth or privilege. She had earned her place at the head of the table through sheer grit and brilliance. Her leadership was legendary, demanding but fair, visionary yet humble. She championed innovation, but more than that, she championed people. Her one rule was simple: respect is earned through action, not title, and it must be shown to everyone. Today was a pivotal day, a meeting with her board of directors to finalize a groundbreaking expansion. This board was her creation, a team of sharp minds she trusted. However, several new members brought in to secure a conservative merger were attending for the first time. They came from older, more traditional firms, and Amelia knew she had to win them over. As she walked through the gleaming glass doors of her own headquarters, she felt a surge of pride. She was ready for a tough negotiation, a battle of strategies. She was not, however, prepared for the battle she was about to face just to get into the room. As she approached the executive floor reception, a new face greeted her, a young, flustered receptionist who held up a hand, stopping her mid-stride. "Can I help you?" he asked, his tone clipped, his eyes barely lifting from his computer screen. Amelia smiled politely. "I'm here for the board meeting." The receptionist sighed, a wave of annoyance crossing his face. "Name?" he asked, still typing. "Amelia Vance," she replied, her smile tightening slightly. He scanned his list. Once, twice. Then he looked up, a dismissive frown on his face. "There's no Amelia Vance on the list of attendees. You must be mistaken. Please, have a seat over there." He gestured vaguely toward a row of chairs by the wall, his attention already back on his screen. Just then, the elevator doors opened, and the three new board members stepped out, laughing amongst themselves. They were older, dressed in immaculate suits, radiating an air of untouchable authority. They glanced at Amelia, a flicker of recognition absent from their eyes. One of them, a man with a stern face, leaned over to another and whispered something. The other man chuckled, casting a dismissive look in her direction before they walked past the desk and straight toward the boardroom. They didn't even check in. The receptionist offered them a warm, deferential smile. "Good morning, gentlemen." Amelia stood frozen for a moment, the casual, layered disrespect hitting her like a physical blow. She wasn't just unseen, she was judged and discarded in an instant. She turned back to the receptionist. "I think there's been a misunderstanding," she said, her voice calm but firm. "I am the CEO. That is my boardroom." The receptionist finally gave her his full attention, but it was not one of realization. It was one of pure condescension. He let out a short, disbelieving laugh. "Right, and I'm the Queen of England. Ma'am, if you don't have an appointment, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. We have very important people here today." The words hung in the air, thick and suffocating. Important people. In her own building? In the company she bled for? The humiliation was sharp, a cold fire spreading through her veins. She could have pulled out her ID, forced him to see his mistake. She could have made a scene. But in that moment, she realized the problem wasn't the receptionist. He was just a symptom of a much deeper disease. It was the culture that allowed him to look at her and see anything but a leader. It was the entitled blindness of the men who walked past her without a second thought. And as she stood there, invisible in the heart of her own empire, a cold, calculated fury began to build. This was no longer about a misunderstanding. It was about a reckoning. With a cold, newfound clarity, Amelia turned away from the receptionist's stunned face. She didn't raise her voice, she didn't plead her case. She simply walked. Without another word, she strode past the desk, her heels clicking with resolute purpose on the marble floor. The heavy oak doors of the boardroom were slightly ajar, and she pushed one open, stepping inside into the quiet hum of conversation. The room fell silent. 10 pairs of eyes turned to her, a mix of confusion and irritation. The 3 new board members, the ones who had brushed past her in the lobby, stared at her as if she were a ghost. One of them, the man with the stern face, recovered first. He smiled a tight, condescending smile. "Ah, finally," he said. "Coffee, just black for me, dear. We've got important matters to discuss." Amelia didn't flinch. She didn't even look at the coffee machine in the corner. Instead, she walked slowly, deliberately, to the head of the long mahogany table, to the high-backed leather chair that was undeniably hers. She placed her hands on it, her knuckles white, and met the man's gaze. "There will be no coffee," she said, her voice quiet but cutting through the silence like a razor. She let her eyes drift from one shocked face to the next. "My name," she announced, "is Amelia Vance. This is my company. This is my boardroom. And as of 2 minutes ago, every single one of you is fired." The silence was absolute, thick with disbelief and shattered pride. "To the new members," she continued, her voice gaining strength, "for your blatant, unthinking disrespect. And to the old ones, for sitting here in silence, allowing it to happen. You have all forgotten the one rule this company was built on. Respect is not given, it is earned, and none of you have earned the right to be here." They didn't argue. They couldn't. In that moment of searing clarity, they saw their mistake, not just as a social blunder, but as a catastrophic failure of judgment. One by one, they gathered their belongings in stunned silence and walked out of the room they no longer had a right to occupy. Amelia Vance didn't watch them go. Instead, she stood alone at the head of the table, in the heart of the empire she had built, and took a long, steadying breath. This wasn't a victory she celebrated. It was a painful but necessary amputation of a sickness that had crept into the foundations of her company. In the weeks that followed, she rebuilt her board from scratch. She sought leaders not just for their sharp minds or impressive resumes, but for their character, for their ability to see the person before the title, the human being behind the face. Her company didn't just survive, it thrived, becoming a new benchmark for inclusive and respectful leadership. Amelia's story isn't just about a CEO who was mistaken for an assistant. It's about the thousands of invisible slights, the casual dismissals, and the deeply ingrained biases that talented people of color, boardrooms, offices, and lobbies around the world. It's a stark reminder that true power isn't about the title on your door, but about the respect you command and the dignity you afford to others. So the question we're left with is this: how many brilliant minds are we leaving in the lobby, waiting for a permission we have no right to give? And what empires are we letting crumble simply because we refuse to open our eyes?